This week's newest movie is Captain Phillips by filmmaker Paul Greengrass and starring Tom Hanks. It tells the story of the true story of the Somali pirate capture of a transport ship that happened in 2009. I remember it very, very well. And of course, this is Paul Greengrass, very cinema verite style, that handheld, gritty look. He's the guy that did United 93, a bunch of the Bourne movies. An amazing filmmaker, a filmmaker I happen to really love, and it turns out the perfect filmmaker to tell this story. This is a riveting story. Obviously, 2009, not that long ago, I remember this happening and you hearing about the crazy snipers taking out the Somali pirates. I guess that's a spoiler for the story, but it was part of that was the only headline that I remember hearing. This gets into the nitty-gritty, the details of how it all happened along the timeline. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And he is the perfect filmmaker to do it because he presents his narratives in a very plain, flat, unspectacular way. It seems like you're right there in that experience without any fluff added, without any spectacle, without any Hollywood on top of it. Even when you have a giant Hollywood actor like Tom Hanks, who, by the way, delivers a really wonderful performance here. You start off and you get right into the action. You get right into, there's not a lot of setup. There's not a lot of figuring out who these people are. You're pretty much right on that boat and the hijacking starts right away. And the hijacking itself is an incredible piece of filmmaking. You get what is basically a modern day train robbery of this big vessel that's like this big old train going through the water, and these guys that are basically on horseback, in this case on these little skiffs, coming up beside it and trying to hijack it. That right there is one of the most thrilling, something I've never seen before, and again, shot, edited, presented in this way that seems so matter of fact, so true, that it doesn't feel like a Hollywood action set piece, even though it is thrilling and riveting as you're in it with these characters. Then you move into a tense, incredible hostage situation. And I applaud the fact that they managed to not present this in a one-sided manner. You feel for these Somalis. I loved that the nuance of being alongside them for a large portion of the movie. There's a lot of this movie where you're not on the ship, you're with the Somalis. It's interesting to feel for them. I felt like this movie is a modern version of Dog Day Afternoon. In the same way that Sidney Lumet puts you inside that bank robbery in that movie and made you feel for those characters and feel for their plight, even though they're doing something terrible, and the complexity of the workings back and forth between the different criminals amongst themselves, the infighting and stresses. In the same way, you feel that for the Somalis in this movie. It's a tense, and I have no idea how they managed to find these actors. These guys are unbelievable. There is not a single frame of this movie when the Somalis are on screen that I did not wholly believe that they were real human beings. Not one moment did I see any acting, and yet they have to carry these incredibly tense scenes and deliver these incredibly powerful moments among themselves, and you feel the weight of the situation in the same way that you see it in Pacino in Dog Day Afternoon. There are scenes I never once thought about the filmmaking, and yet it was only in retrospect that I started thinking, how the hell did they do half that stuff? How did they fit the camera in some of these positions? How did we see what we see? It is an incredible experience. It's one I highly recommend. If you thought Gravity was tense, man, your nerves are in for another one for this movie. Seeing those two movies back to back was incredible because they're both such intense, pulse-pounding, heart-racing experiences. Also, no spoilers, but the last scene of this movie is some of the finest acting I have ever seen in my life. It moved me profoundly. Can't recommend Captain Phillips enough. I really, really, really liked it. I hope it doesn't get overshadowed by the phenomenon that Gravity has become. All right, speaking of Gravity, we're going to talk spoilers in the next segment. We're going to move to latest. It's going to be spoilers with GTA and Gravity.